Welcome back to Grit Gym, guys. Today is the Adam and Rachel show. We got Rachel back from Vegas.
Yeah.
Did you guys know that?
I was in Vegas.
Rachel was in Vegas last week, or this weekend, for one of her friends' birthday. The friend didn't even know that she was showing up, which was kind of cool. But before we get into this, please like, comment, share below. We really like to have you guys interact. And also, definitely sign up. Go over to gritgym.com, go to the shop, go to sign up for a strategy session, get involved with Grit Gym in some way. We have the Move Strong games coming up, and that should be really fun. It's a friendly competition. If anybody gets really cutthroat, we're probably going to have a conversation with them. So it's a friendly competition. But Grit Gym is a personal training studio that does location-based and online training for people that are trying to get back into getting in shape or just coming off of an injury is the majority of our crowd. That's what we specialize in, is movement quality. And if you put your strength and your muscle gain and all your gains and all the things that you want to do in front of movement quality, you're going to get none of it. If you put movement quality first, you're going to get all of it. So definitely head over to gritgym.com. Today, we're talking about passive aggressive in your relationship and how that plays into the health of your body, the health of your relationship, and the health of what am I trying to say?
I'd say the health of your relationships and your ability to communicate.
Yes. So that you can do all the things that you want to do within your relationships that you do have. Mm-hmm. What's passive aggressive to you?
Okay, so the way I was looking at it.
That is hot.
Yeah, it's fresh. Passive aggressive is, I wouldn't say a communication technique, but it's something that we all have done.
I don't know. I think you could probably call it a communication technique.
I
don't know if it's a very good
It's not an effective communication technique.
Good way to.
But we all seem to use it in some sort of way, whether we know it or not. There's many different sneaky versions of passive-aggressive behavior that I've come to think that it's a defense mechanism in...
How so?
Well, if you think about why we use passive-aggressive behavior, it's because we're trying to hide something about ourselves. Like the people that say, I don't like confrontation, they are often caught in passive-aggressive.
Well, no one likes confrontation.
Yeah, nobody likes confrontation.
Like what person? I mean, maybe somebody out there does, but I think the majority of us don't really like confrontation. I don't like confrontation, but I know that it's inevitable. It's going to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
maybe. Okay, go ahead.
In an example, you want to confront a coworker about something that they do every day that really you don't like.
Okay, so your coworker does something every day, and you don't like that they do it,
and it comes to a
head, and it's detrimental to something.
It comes to a head, and you want to address the behavior by using passive-aggressive ways of communicating that this is not something you like. You are not using any sort of effective communication. You're wasting your time and energy.
Is that because you're not clear?
You're not clear at all.
When I get passive aggressive, when I've been passive aggressive in the past, I'm just I'm super ambiguous with what I'm saying. And then at the end I'll go, do you know what I mean? And they'll say, yeah, I know what you mean. And so I'll be like, okay, great, and I'll move on. But they didn't get what I meant because they didn't do what I asked.
So you're almost asking for that occurrence to happen again, and that same exact conversation to happen over again and over again and over again.
Yeah, so even though you had the guts to make the confrontation, you didn't...
Yeah, it's like you had the guts to say something about it, but you didn't have the guts to actually get clear on what you don't like.
Yeah, see, I think that's what you're really getting down to with the passive aggression thing, like the clarity of it all. And I think a little bit of it, we're all a little afraid of that, being the confronter. I don't want to confront people. I'd rather people just understand me and me understand them, and we're all a big happy family, and it's wonderful. But I think that the confrontation is inevitable because conflict is inevitable. Maybe we should get clear on what confrontation and conflict is.
Or constructive can also be part of it. So, which one do you want me to do first? Constructive?
Yeah.
Okay, so I used to use this thing on the girls that worked for me a lot of the time.
Like
I think you
what?
use it too. We call it a compliment sandwich.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
when you want to address a certain behavior that they're doing, you kind of take down their defensive wall by saying you're doing really, really awesome at this, and have it tie into it. But you really need to work on this.
Yeah.
It kind of takes away, because some people, the second you say we have to talk, it's a defense goes up, and either they're not going to hear what you have to say, or they're going to get.
It's pretty
angry.
tough to be constructive when the other person is terrified. They're like, we need to talk.
You
It's
can't
like, oh my God, I'm scared to
accept
death.
what they're saying.
And then they don't hear anything. I think, anyway, I know that in my situation, like anytime that I've been scared of something, it's like, I didn't want to hear this, I didn't want to hear this, I don't want to hear this, and I heard the thing I didn't want to hear, and then I didn't listen.
Yeah.
Like,
or
that's
they
not
don't
good.
take you seriously. This would happen all the time with me, because I'm a lot less aggressive in my confrontation, obviously.
Then who? Than me?
You. But I'm just saying, me as a boss, I found it hard to get to the point and say what I meant.
I think
and
everybody that.
Say it in a way that they took seriously.
Yeah.
I could say it like the nicest way possible. I could say it the meanest way possible. They're not going to take those seriously, both of them.
Yeah, you gotta find some middle ground there.
Yeah,
I usually
the
just
middle
I
ground.
ask a question like, "Hey, can you do this a little bit better?" That's how I do it. Like, "Hey, can we when we do this, can we do it this way?" And to get an agreement. And then and usually I'll try to start with something really, really small. Like, "Hey, when you pull this out, can you do it this way? And then when we put it over here, can we do it this way?" And then, get the agreement along the way so that you're walking down the path, so it's not as, "Hey, do this, and then do this." I hate parking orders. I hate it. I just don't like it at all. It's just not who I am. I know that if somebody talked to me like that, I'd be like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do that." I would never do that thing. I'd never do that thing if they told me to barking orders at me.
Well, it's also it's like having a conversation through text message. It's like you don't fully understand how that person is feeling. Things can go different ways, and you have no idea if they're angry. You can't see the reaction on their face. So there's just like a lapse in understanding. With passive aggressive behavior, you're saying one thing, but you're meaning a different thing.
Yeah, well, that gets into the kind of we're in the age where communication is dying, where verbal communication is dying. People are having a really hard time with this, like statistically.
Well, they don't have as much practice as they would, because they're doing everything over.
There's just a different.
Email,
it's a digital
phone,
medium now.
yeah,
I think it's
it's
really hard
different.
for people. I know communication is hard enough as it is, let alone with all of this stuff. But let's get back to this. Like, so we're talking about passive aggression. And how it is a form of communication, but it's just very people think, "Hey, and we're back." We were just discussing about the difference between like confrontation and combat and conflict. And alliteration aside, I think it's very easy to get stuck in those, because you hear the word confront and you're like, "Man, that must mean that somebody's screaming at you." Well, no, it doesn't. Like, there can be a peaceful confrontation. There can be a peaceful conflict. But it's not always that we have to go to combat. We don't have to start yelling and screaming and being an asshole, even though it's going to come across like that sometimes, right?
Sometimes that is effective, but
She
in the
kind of
long
smiled
run,
right there.
in the
You
moment,
see that smile?
I don't know. In the moment, it's not. It's effective, so you get your point across very clearly.
It's very efficient.
But it also puts their defense on. They're not really respecting you in that moment.
I don't know if it's a sign of disrespect.
Well, that one time I was working with some girls, and it was like the one time I chose to be really aggressive, because she was not listening. And it was the one time I was super clear, and I was like, "No, she clearly is doing this in spite of me. She's being very disrespectful."
Okay.
And I got called a psychopath for it.
And what did we do?
What did I do?
Yeah, when you told me that, what did we do?
I laughed.
And then what did we do? So we had like high-fived, and like I was like, "I'm so proud of you."
Yeah. And I'm not saying that. I think in that moment I had every right to put my foot down.
No, you always have a right to put your foot down,
but she took it as on the defense, and it did not help her situation. She did what she was supposed to do after that, but she was pissed, and she was the victim in that moment, and she was deflecting it on me and trying to make it sound like she
your,
didn't do anything wrong.
Okay, so I get it. That's understandable. But did you do anything wrong in that moment?
I didn't.
Okay, did she do something?
Yes.
Did she make an error in that moment? What's her error?
She went the victim route.
I think that this is where you do the division of selves, where it's like, yes, like you want it to be your fault, but at the same time, you want to divide yourself out and analyze this thing. What? Like the division of selves?
No, the psychopath thing I think is so funny.
Yeah, to call you a psychopath. Like, but at the same time, you're like, where do you draw the line? I'm not saying, like, I don't think that you got angry at her. I think that you were just very, very, very clear. And if you were very, very, very clear, I think that you did more of a service to this person than you did a disservice to this person.
I know I did.
Because sometimes, like, at some point, you have to kick people the real deal. Mm-hmm. Like, at some point, I've never once gotten mad at somebody at the gym. Or I've gotten, like, angry with them, but I've never shown it. But I have gotten very, very clear with people before where it's like, I know that this isn't what you want to hear. But in this moment, you have to hear this. And if I don't tell you this, then I'm doing you a disservice, not doing you a service.
Well, if the goal is to have the day run smoothly, the work day run smoothly, and you're doing something completely opposite in detriment of that, then I feel like that's on you. That's not on me. That's on the worker or the person doing the job. It's not on me, because my job in that moment is literally to make sure that you're doing your job. And if you're not doing it, then we have a problem.
Yeah, and I think there's a I don't know, I don't want to call it a balance here, but because balance I think is like end to end, like the spectrums. Because like in football, you got called, it was just like, you got called a effing pussy every 10 seconds. It was just like, dude, I just pushed that guy down there 30 yards, put him on his back, and did awesome, and you're calling me this. Like, why? Like, that is just a point where it's just like, all right, like, this is really silly. You didn't point out anything good that it did, and he's just tearing you down for what? And that was their kind of means of getting there. I think that that's really silly. But at the same time, if you don't push people along the way, I think and you don't apply a little bit of pressure, then you are doing them a huge disservice. And at this moment, I think that you were being very clear with this person. You weren't being angry. You were being very clear, and they got offended by it. If they get offended by it, like, you're the only one that can allow something to offend you. It wasn't your problem. It was hers, I think.
I believe that.
But I think the responsibility thing gets really chewed up there really quick. It gets very hard to understand.
Yeah. And in that moment, I could have also easily been hard on myself because I had caused someone else that kind of...
You didn't cause it,
I know, but I see it so clearly that she was in the wrong.
But that's the invitation. So if you go to guilt there, then because she got offended by
something... I had to manage it pretty hard.
Right. So you were very clear, and the understanding is that being clear is a good thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a very effective form of communication. Yeah. How are you going to communicate if you're not being clear? She decided to go to a place of being a victim, and then you almost went to guilt to join her in that victimization, that self-victimization. So mm-hmm. You're both throwing your own pity parties, and it's ridiculous.
It is.
So this is where it's like 100% responsibility for both gets chewed up, because it's like, yeah, you're doing 100% of your responsibility to do your thing, to get her to do her thing so that she can be the best that she can possibly be, and she's supposed to be doing 100 to get take 100% responsibility to do the best that she possibly can. Did you make an error? I don't think you made an error. Did she make an error? Yes. If you would have gone to guilt, you would have made an error.
I know.
So it's just like getting extremely pragmatic about the situation, which is really, really hard to do.
It is hard, but if your goal is to communicate effectively and have the relationship not suffer because you wanted to bring up something that was bothering you, then you have to say it. You have to say it in a clear, effective way rather than beating around the bush.
Yeah.
Because...
What's it like to deal with me sometimes? And the whole clarity thing, where I'm just like, what did you mean? What did you mean? What did you mean?
That's so annoying. But
I know, but at the same time, like, I mean,
I don't get mad or
you used to, or not you
I
used
know
to get like
not
frustrated.
To.
Yeah.
I know to come from a different perspective because I know what you're trying to do. I know what you're trying to accomplish. You're trying to get to a resolution, or
I'm trying to solve the scenario. Like if I say when to me it's like you pick a time and that's the time that you go, right? This is an easy example. So like we're going to be there at 8 p.m. That means we need to leave by 7:30 p.m. Mm-hmm. And when Rachel and I first got together, it was very much a situation where she was like, where if I said we're going to leave at 7:30, she thought that meant she could still be doing her makeup, that we had time, that we could show up just a little bit late. And it's like, no, it's not about showing up late. We're going to leave at 7:30. Like the first few times that we would go anywhere together, it was like I'd be like, okay, I'm going to the car. It's 7:25. I'm going to the car. You have 5 minutes, and I'm leaving. She'd be like she wouldn't believe me. And I'd start pulling my car. I'd walk back in and be like, all right, I'm leaving. And she'd hear the garage door open, me start pulling out. She'd be like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I'd come running out and then jump in the car and be like, what's your deal? Like, why do we have to be? And it's like, because I said, I was very clear. We're going to leave at 7:30.
Whatever. We just had, that's the lack of clarity too, because in my house, it was, I don't think in any time that we were leaving somewhere as a family, we left on time. Like I would put $1 million on that bet. Not one time. And even 5 minutes after is not on time, so.
No, it's a discipline to be, but anyway,
yeah.
When we first started dating, I think that I probably was not I was probably passive aggressive about the whole like we need to leave around 7:30, like no, we need to leave at 7:30 and get very clear with the scenario that you're in. I think it's very easy, and if you're not very clear, a conflict starts very quickly. And I don't really want a lot of conflict. Like I said earlier, I don't like to confront a conflict. I don't want to do it. So I want to be extremely clear on what the expectation is, what's mine, what's yours, where's our responsibility lie, who's going to do what, all that kind of stuff, so that everybody knows what is going on. So if you're really clear about it, nobody can get offended. This is your job. You don't do that job, and I pointed out, hey, you didn't do this job. Hey, why didn't you do your job? That was the agreement. We were clear on that, weren't we? Yes, we were clear. Then why didn't you do your job? Now I don't really need an answer. But it's like, go ahead and do your job.
Yeah. And I know that you've never really worked with coworkers who use this as kind of like a bullying mechanism.
What do you mean? The passive aggressive thing?
Yeah.
Oh, I think you'd be surprised how many people that you train are passive aggressive.
They use it.
I didn't know it.
I almost feel like they use it to not be clear, so that they could say later on, well, I wasn't mean. Yep. Or I wasn't, I was very nice. I came at them very nice. But I've had instances where I was sad over the way.
I didn't even think this is where you were going to go, but yeah.
Well, I think it should be brought up. Because
use it.
In that moment, I knew that their aggression wasn't warranted, but I also took it so hard on myself. Because
so like a guilt or
I felt guilty. I felt ashamed for not doing what I was supposed to do. But I mean, now
there was a guy anyway, am I cutting you off or keep going?
Now I love myself enough to know that I shouldn't have to deal with that behavior anymore. So it's almost like a game for me, or like a trigger when somebody is that way to me, and I'm like, they use sarcasm instead of like being clear. I'm like, oh, that's funny. Like, why do you think like that? What's wrong? Like, it's playing their own game with them, because
but you're confronting them on it so that they can't.
Confronting it so that they don't ever do that again. Yeah,
because this is a bad position to be in.
Well, I hate when I
really
see it done to people who don't understand that that's what's being done to them. It's like, why are you playing this game with this person who has no idea what you're doing?
Yeah,
it's manipulative.
Yeah, I personally would rather know where people stand. I'd rather you be a complete asshole to me than do the whole passive aggressive thing. I despise passive aggressive thing. I think it's ridiculous.
It's bullying.
It totally is. Like Molly does this. Maybe I should have let that off. But she does. She does. My older sister used to do this all the time. I don't know if she still does, but it's
drink of choice, though.
She'll get so pissed off, and then she'll calm down, and she'll try to talk to you, and she'll be all nice and everything, but she's so snide about it, and it's just like, just get pissed. I'd rather you just get mad at me. Just let me have it, get it over with, let it out. Don't try to pull this bullshit off. I know what's going on. I know you. But I would much rather know. There was this guy that we grew up with. He was one of my older brothers. His family and our family were really close family friends. They were always around. I just really liked him though. But every once in a while he would just fly off the handle. Mm-hmm. And it'd just be like, dude, like you are a scary dude. And he was big and he was a strong guy. And I was like scared of him when he would do this, but I always appreciated it because I always knew where this guy stood.
Yeah, you knew he wore his emotions on his sleeve. Maybe not in a good way, right?
Not in a good way. There was other ways that he could have gone about it. But at the same time, you knew where he stood, and you knew when you stepped out of line. I do not like not knowing where the borders are. Yep. Like, I might not follow your borders, but I want to know where they are. I want to know when I can violate them.
Yeah. And also, I think when people do, like the people that give you like a backhanded compliment,
I think those are really funny.
That's a very, very clear indication that they are insecure about something in that moment.
I don't know, that can work two ways. I've given backhanded compliments plenty of times before where after I said it, I was like, I really meant that in a good way. It just came out all wrong. I didn't do it in like
it was like, say somebody was saying like, oh, I heard that you got that promotion, and you're not even really good at your job, and you didn't even graduate college, but good job for you. It's just like,
oh, you got that promotion, huh?
Like, wow. What does that have to do with
Shows
me?
That you don't have to try hard.
Like, are you giving me a compliment, or are you saying like you don't deserve this?
Yeah.
It's their way of being able to like, oh well, I wasn't mean, I wasn't rude about it. I was giving them a compliment. Well, yeah, that's what you maybe intended, but I don't even think that's what they intended.
Yeah.
But that's passive aggressive.
Yeah, I think being passive aggressive, like I definitely think you can do a confrontation in a way that's like, hey, can we open up lines of communication and can we agree to have a discussion here and have a nice discussion? But at the same time, there comes a point where I was in a movie theater once where this guy wouldn't shut up, and everyone around us, like I was sitting right behind him, and everyone around us was obvious, like looking down every 10 seconds because he's just talking as loud as I am right now. And eventually the movie was going on, so I just kicked his seat. I didn't know what else to do. I wasn't gonna like try to like. I didn't know what to do. Anyway, so and I wasn't really mad. I just
wasn't
like
that recently too?
Yeah, I just like fed up and just kicked his seat. And I was like, oh, I can't really. Like, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna sit and have a conversation with this guy. Kicked his seat, and he goes and he called me rude, and then I said I would have done something else. I would have reasoned with you had that not disrupted the movie too. And he got so mad at me. But then he just sat and sulked the rest of it, and he didn't say anything.
Wait, what did he say to you? Didn't he say
he called me rude? Yeah, he called me rude, and he said that it's not very polite. And I said I would do something else, but the movie's going on. I would talk to you, but the movie's going on. And then he sat and he left right away after the movie was done, and everybody around me was like, "Hey, thank you so much." And I was like, and I didn't want to do this at all. I did not want to do this, but I knew that everybody else's experience was being ruined, and so was mine, because this douchebag wouldn't shut the fuck up. And I started thinking about it afterwards, and I was like, I was not the impolite one there. I'm not the rude. You know what's rude and not polite is talking really loud in the middle of a movie. Mm-hmm. So yeah, no, he could shut up.
I think that would be very liberating to be like, shut the fuck up.
Some people.
I think like I've had like it's. You just wish you had the balls to do that. But even like kicking their chair and them actually shutting up is also pretty...
It wasn't empowering to me. I didn't want to do it.
Well, obviously you didn't want to do it, but like, did you want to sit throughout that movie wondering if I do it? Is he... I don't know. It's best that you did that.
All I know is that multiple people that were around me that were annoyed by this jackass,
mean.
and
They wanted
like
to do the
thanked me
exact same
afterwards. And it was kind of nice because we all sat and had a conversation about the movie after the movie, which was kind of cool. I really liked doing that. That was awesome. Usually I just kind of run out of the movie theater, but this passive aggression thing, I think, is something that it's like it's a little bit based on assumptions, a little bit based on fear, a little bit based on this like delaying conflict.
It's confusing.
You can't. What do you mean? Hey, we're back again. But at the end here, I think we should just cover passive aggression is not confrontation, and confrontation does not have to be combative, and you cannot avoid confrontation. You can simply delay it. It's going to happen. They are inevitable. And in my experience, the longer you try to delay this thing, the more it grows and the worse it gets. How's it been for you when you needed to confront me on something?
It's definitely a work in progress.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, using aggression to get my point across isn't very effective either. It's basically just me acknowledging that I don't feel safe enough to address that there's a problem.
That's a good point.
And that doesn't solve anything either.
Not usually.
I mean, it comes down to if we want this to work and we can't get clear on the small stuff in an effective manner, then
how are we going to take care of the big stuff?
Yeah.
How would you get? I think that's really interesting, an interesting topic to talk about. Because like, how are you gonna, if you have trouble with the communication thing between you and I right now, or like in your relationship, how are you going to bring a kid into the scenario and then try to do? Okay, did you parent the way that you wanted to parent? That's about as complicated a thing as you can possibly do. You're going to raise a child.
And how confusing is it for your child to see that form of communication?
Yeah.
If your parents are constantly being passive aggressive with each other and you never really understand what it is to have an effective
I think we live in
if you don't see what that's like, then how can you ever do that in the real world?
That's one of the mistakes I think they made in the 90s. The 90s came up with this brilliant fucking idea to tell parents that they should not resolve their issues in front of their kids. Don't fight in front of your kids because then they'll learn how to fight. But then you also don't show them how to resolve a conflict in front of your kids, so your kids have no idea. And now, I mean, in Cedar Falls, this happened the other day. I don't know if you saw this, but 3 different houses called cops on this little girl that was selling cookies out on the corner. Why? This is in one neighborhood. Why wouldn't these people have walked across the street? I think this is just absolutely pathetic, and I don't care if I sound judgmental. This is pathetic.
Wait, I don't get it.
I am so disappointed with Iowans. Like with
don't even
these
put it
3
on
Iowans.
It's not just Iowa.
I know, but I consider Iowa to be a very wonderful place to live. It is like the oasis of. I think that we should be the example to the United States on how to have relationships, how to do the life thing. I think Iowa should just be like a shining beacon of great things, and this just disappoints me so much that somebody did this.
What happened?
So this little girl, she's selling cookies, and she was so popular that there was that there was like people turning around in other people's driveways, and that's the story anyway. But,
so it was like creating a nuisance or something?
Supposedly, but really all that they did was tell her to move back to a different location. And then she moved back to the location, and in her words, she said that now I don't see any of the traffic that was out there. So I think that what was happening, like regardless of the scenario, I don't care what the scenario is. What I'm disappointed with is that the people that had a problem with this little girl selling cookies did not just go over to the little girl, discuss it with her, and then go discuss it with her parents like a reasonable human being. They called the cops. It's like, Mommy and Daddy is not always going to be around to solve all of your problems. You cannot call the cops and treat them like your parents. I think that it is ridiculous. And anyway, it's extremely passive aggressive. I'm going to call the cops. Walk across the street. Do your own. I think for one, I think it's ridiculous that the cops would even take that call. Be like, listen, they should have just said, go deal with it yourself. Click.
What about when we didn't mow our lawn for a week when we were gone. And then we got back and like had how many complaints?
No, it was more than that. It was 3 weeks. But basically, so it was at the beginning of the year when the grass starts to grow really, really fast. And I think we had 64 complaints is what the lady said. The lady showed up at our door, knocked, and I was like, hey, what's up?
So
and she's like,
different
there have been 64 complaints about this yard.
Didn't come to us and say something.
And we knew that we needed it. So basically, I waited like a week and a half and tried to start the lawnmower. Lawnmower didn't work. I'm like, crap, I'm going to have to go buy a new lawnmower because I tried a bunch of different stuff. And then, but then by that time we had to get ready to leave on this trip. We were gone for a week, came back, and it was a jungle. It looked like crap. And anyway, this lady's knocking on our door, and I was like, yeah, I know the yard looks like shit. And she started telling me, and she's like... a
lady from the city.
Yeah. From the city of Iowa City.
Which we're not proud of this, obviously.
No, but at the same time...
We took care of it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we were not going to mow our lawn. It was just...
It's just funny that people were writing in being like, this lawn is...
Not a single person said anything to us. This is just an example.
If you have this big of an issue, you should go to the person and confront them. If you have a big... like, people were writing, like, apparently, like, really nasty letters. She said, like, the number of people that write in these really nasty letters and say how offensive your yard is kind of... She's like, it's up to 64 now.
But they didn't even live near us.
Yeah, they didn't live near us.
Whether it happened or not.
Yeah, I don't know what the details are on that, but I just think it's really funny.
I really wish somebody would have said something to, like, and this is, I don't even know if it was before I moved in here. I didn't realize that it was that bad. I didn't think it was that bad.
It wasn't.
It really wasn't.
It was overgrown. It definitely.
But it wasn't affecting everybody else's lawn. It wasn't affecting.
It wasn't hurting anybody else, no.
No, you could still walk the sidewalk. There were like bushes everywhere. It was just, the lawn was overgrown. It was
unkept, is what it was. But no, it's just like in business, like in anything, the worst complaint is the one that you don't hear. It's not the one, like, I never mind when people complain to me. I do mind when I hear through the grapevine of what they're saying. Mm-hmm. And I usually call them up and just be like, hey, what's going on, and talk with them a little bit about it. And one lady took a great offense to that. I was trying to be very diplomatic in my approach. And she said, I'm not intimidated. And I was like, why would you be intimidated? I'm just calling to see what's going on. I thought we were on good terms. And she said that we were on good terms. And I don't totally understand the situation there. But
well, it happens a lot in high school. Like before we in junior high, before we realize what effective communication is, there's a lot of people that talk behind each other's backs and they're very fake. If I knew that this person didn't like me and was talking behind my back, I probably wouldn't be friends with them.
My first girlfriend in college, I remember going to her house one time, and apparently she was one of those people that doesn't rinse the bowl after she's done eating cereal. Like,
you hate that.
I thought, when I heard that, I was like, what? Like, she doesn't just rinse out the bowl? It takes like 2 seconds to rinse out the bowl, and if you don't rinse out the bowl, the effect is like this like concrete thing on there. It's like oatmeal. If you don't rinse out your oatmeal bowl after you've done eating oatmeal, it's just like concrete on there.
20 minutes to scrub it out.
Yeah, whereas like you could have just rinsed it out. Anyway, her roommates asked me to ask her, and I was like, why wouldn't you just ask her? Like, sure, I can, but why wouldn't you just ask her? I'm not saying that this stuff is easy to do, by the way. I think it's very, very difficult to get extremely clear. But the positive effects of being very, very clear in your communication are insane.
Well, if you live with a roommate for an entire year and never acknowledge that, then you just wasted that entire year to say something.
I know.
And how many times did she leave her cereal?
It grows and grows and grows, and pretty soon you get this high level of resentment.
Yeah.
It's just funny. But anyway, the point is, I think passive aggression is a communication technique. I don't think it's very effective. I don't get the point. I think it's very easy to cower to that fear and use passive aggression, whereas it's very difficult to just tell someone what you said.
It's
what
defensive.
You need.
But
I don't think it's offensive.
Defensive.
Oh, it's defensive. Yeah, totally, it's defensive.
Yeah.
Anyway, you want to close this one out? We're only like 20 minutes over. 13.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, guys.
Yep.
If you have any questions or comments about today, or have any suggestions or topics for next week. I'm here every Tuesday. Right? Every Tuesday. I'm never doing this again if you keep laughing.
You're just cute, that's all.
That doesn't help.
The agreement was that Rachel was going to do the send-off. This last week we said Rachel is going to she's going to close us out. So this week she did.
So yeah, like, share, comment.
That was good.
Whatever.
All right. Thanks, guys, for being here.